Good morning. I'm with Bob Moriarty, founder of 321gold.com and a senior citizen. We just had a little joke. Bob, how are you?
I was doing really well until you brought that up. Now I'm not doing that well.
I'm sorry for saying senior. I was going to say senior editor, and then we kind of made a joke of it. So look, there's a lot going on in the world today. This buildup of U.S. military equipment continues in the Middle East. A bunch of F-22s are in Israel now. What's going on?
If you go back to Epstein, he was running a blackmail operation for the CIA, the FBI, and the Mossad. There is more and more information coming out that he is alive and well in Israel. I have seen a clip that I believe, and of course, admittedly, it could be AI. It's hard to tell the difference. I believe it was a valid clip of him recently, and he said Israel owns Donald Trump, and if he doesn't do what we tell him to do, we'll kill him. And I believe that. Netanyahu went to Washington on the 11th, and I believe he gave Donald Trump his marching orders. Do you know, okay, we are speaking on Thursday, do you know what is happening today in Geneva?
No, I don't know what's happening today in Geneva.
Okay. The U.S. and Iran are meeting, and the U.S. has said they got 2 days to come up with a deal. And they either make a deal today in the next hour, or the chances of a war are substantially above 98%. I think it would be a criminal mistake. I think it will be the end of two empires, and it's going to be a shock to everyone. I was in the military for 6 years. One of the most important rules was never bring a knife to a gunfight. The equipment the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians have is far superior to the equipment the U.S. has. The F-35, the B-2, the F-22 can be seen on radar at 1,000 kilometers. So even though we have a lot of military equipment over there, we had 10 times as much military equipment in Vietnam, and we still lost. Donald Trump is totally out of his league. He doesn't understand what he's doing. Even the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is saying that he can't guarantee success. Now, you don't have to have been in the military. When the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says he can't guarantee success, what is he really saying?
He's saying he doesn't want to do it.
He's saying we're about to get our asses kicked.
Yeah.
And he's correct. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Iran is not the enemy of the United States, and I don't think the president of the United States should be a lapdog for Bibi Netanyahu.
But, does the Iranian regime really have friends, Bob? Like, are there actually any allies that are actually going to stand up for it here?
Well, only two.
Well, Russia and China, but I don't think they're going to get involved.
China has warships there. They are involved. They have been shipping equipment, including ballistic missiles and long-range radar, for weeks. you're going to have to take my word because this is something I am an expert on. They have better equipment than we do, and they are on the moral high ground. Iran has not threatened the United States. Iran is not a threat to the United States. Iran is not a threat to anyone except Israel. And they're only a threat to Israel because Israel has been threatening to destroy them since 2001. Do you remember the meeting? I try to think of what the general was. Right after 2001, the 9/11, a retired general went to the Pentagon. He met with a friend of his, and a friend of his said, "General, you got to take a look at this. This order just came down from Rumsfeld, and we're going to attack 7 countries in 5 years." And the general said, "For what?" And the guy said, "I don't know." Okay, so this attack was like the attack on Libya, the attack on Sudan, the attack on Somalia, the attack on Lebanon, the attack on Iraq. It's all planned 25 years ago. Iran is not the enemy of the United States, and we have no business whatsoever threatening them, and never take a knife to a gunfight. In World War II, World War I, 3 empires collapsed. Do you remember that?
World War I, yes.
Okay, the Ottoman Empire, the Russian Empire, and the Austrian-Hungary Empire. Wars have a nasty habit of changing the landscape, and this is going to change the landscape. The United States is going to lose catastrophically, and Israel is going to lose catastrophically. And the only thing they could possibly accomplish is to kill a lot of Iranians. But it's going to cost American lives to do it.
And, did you watch the State of the Union speech?
I saw clips of it. I don't think Trump's dealing with full deck. There's something on CNN today saying the majority of Americans think there's something wrong with Trump physically and mentally. And the guy's goofy.
Yeah. There's a lot to take away from that, but I think the big takeaway is that he just wants to take victory laps and talk about how great everything is and how great he's doing and how America is back. But the vast, majority of Americans don't feel the same way. They don't feel like America's back. Yeah, okay, we won the gold medal in hockey. That's great. But it's a game, it's great, but it's a game, and it doesn't really change anybody's lives who didn't play in the game. So, the economy is still mediocre. Job market is pretty soft. Obviously, things are changing in the labor market in 2026. And inflation, he can talk all he wants about how he's defeated inflation, but prices are as high or higher than they've ever been, right? So there's his talking points and the stuff he wants to cite and the data he wants to talk about, but the reality is something else, right? And
well, you and I know there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that most people either don't know about or they ignore. If you look at the repo market, okay, there is a liquidity problem in the American financial system right now, period. Okay, I don't know what it is, but the fact that the repo market is bigger than it was in 2007 and 2008 is a giant signal that something's wrong. And gold at 5,600 and silver $121 an ounce. However edifying it is to the holders of gold and silver, that is a barometer and a thermometer of chaos in the economic system. So Trump can stand up there and say how wonderful things are, but like most other Americans, I look around at what's going on and say, hey, wait a minute, I am very, very nervous about the near-term future. And you throw in the wild card of World War III with a totally useless war against Iran. We're at the most dangerous time in American history. Now, did you see what Huckabee said about Greater Israel?
Yes, I did see that. Yeah, he's quite a character. He's the American ambassador to Israel, but he seems like he's more like the Israeli ambassador to America.
Exactly. Tucker Carlson seems like a real mild, nice, quiet, easygoing guy, but he's a very bright guy. And he set Huckabee up, and Huckabee walked into the trap. Now, if your readers will go to Google and put in Greater Israel, they will realize that this is a plan Israel's had for the longest time. Israel plans on taking all of the land from the Nile to the Euphrates and as far north as Turkey. Now, as long as they keep their mouth shut, all of the guys in the neighborhood over there pretended they didn't know what was happening. But Huckabee says, oh, yeah, great idea. Why doesn't Israel take over the entire Middle East and Saudi Arabia to Egypt and Turkey and Qatar and UAE and Jordan and Syria and Lebanon? Said, wait just a minute. Okay, who do you think you are? So I wish we would settle the chaos in the Middle East, and if we attack Iran, we may just do that.
Yeah, so I looked on Polymarket, and the current odds are a little bit more than 50% that the U.S. will strike, Iran before March 31st. So we have basically 30 days, and the odds are 54%. There will be a strike within 30 days. And Polymarket's gotten this pretty right so far. The odds have been pretty low of, like a near-term strike so far. And now they're moving above 50%. So clearly we're getting closer to the 0 hour. And, it makes sense that now there's 2 aircraft carriers in the theater. I can't even count the aircraft. I think it's over 200 by now in terms of total.
I think hundreds. Yes. Yeah,
hundreds.
I mean, literally, I have never seen an air armada. They have sent every aerial refueling aircraft the U.S. Air Force owns to the Middle East, because with the weapons that Russia and China have given to Iran, they can reach out and tap you at 3 or 4 miles. So if you're going to attack Iran, you better launch from 1,000 miles away, and you better be ready to fire off your missiles from 500 miles away. And I'm not sure. I can't even imagine how difficult the coordination of that would be. When you got that many aircraft, my God, they're going to have mid-airs. That's a Chinese fire drill in the making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I agree. I believe the rhetoric the last few days kind of confirmed to me this is happening. It's no longer really a question. I know Iran has tried to appease Trump by saying, let's do an economic deal. Let's tone this down. We'll reduce the enrichment levels or whatever. But they're not buying it. And clearly, the major driving force here is Israel, and obviously Trump is close with Netanyahu. So this looks like it's happening, probably in March, but not 100%. And I think that Trump enjoys having the optionality. I think he enjoys increasing the pressure and maintaining the optionality. Like, yeah, I can strike when I want to, and you'll squirm a little bit before I do it, right? And he can also get intelligence for what the Iranians are doing on the ground to try to get ready for it, right?
Right. Now, you just raised something. I want to throw something interesting. What is the name of that betting market?
Poly market.
Poly market. Okay. We posted a piece a few days ago about how corrupt the United States has become. And I was talking to my son, who is a doctor in Pennsylvania, and he said in Pennsylvania, they are betting on high school football games on Poly Market. And I thought, that is the most absurd thing I have ever heard. So there's going to be some 15-year-old jock for one high school who's really tough and talented, and there'll be a 17-year-old jock in the opposing high school, and they're going to start thinking about it and say, you know, if we play a game against these guys, we might not win, but if I lay down, maybe I can guarantee we lose. Now, do you know who Chris Hughes is?
Yes.
Okay, Chris Hughes does some great interviews. I highly encourage people to watch him. Chris Hughes did an interview. It hadn't been posted, so the only people who knew about it were the people who participated in the taping. So they go out in Poly Market, and someone was betting whether he would mention Repo Market, whether he would mention Carney, whether he would mention Iran. And of course, the only person who would actually want to set something like that up is somebody who was part of the interview, because it's much easier to bet on something that you know it's a sure thing. And the point of the article was, we are so corrupt. I mean, you would have to go back to Rome in the 4th century. We've got assassinations right in front of 1,000 people with cell phones videotaping the whole thing. We're kidnapping the elected president of foreign countries. We're going down to Mexico and assassinating drug lords. I mean, my God, what on earth has happened to the United States? What on earth has happened to the debt-based system of the West? And I think it's the final stages of a collapse.
And, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned Mexico, because what happened on Sunday was pretty shocking, right? So this is close to the U.S. It's close to home. A lot of Canadian and American tourists love to go to Mexico, enjoy the better weather and cheaper prices. And they got a little bit of a shock on Sunday. So what's your take on the situation with the cartels? I mean, clearly these organizations are pretty violent. They're very well equipped, and they have free reign over certain parts of Mexico. Is there any way to rein these guys back in?
Yeah, of course.
How?
What happened during Prohibition?
Well, you started the FBI, and you got tough on some of these gangsters.
We corrupted every police agency in the United States. We corrupted every judge in the United States. We created the mafia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of a good solution to the war on drugs. But depending on how you define it, if you say the biggest problem is the drugs, I don't think there's a solution. If you say the biggest problem is the crime and the corruption, there is a solution. Now, I don't want to sound horrible. However, if I was the guy in charge and I could do anything I want, I would have the DEA load up dump trucks with fentanyl and cocaine and heroin and marijuana, and I would have them take it to every street corner in the United States and hand out spoons and say, knock yourself out. And then I would bury everybody and plant flowers, okay? The crime is a problem. The corruption is a problem. The United States certainly was involved in whacking that drug lord. How long did it take to replace him?
Less than 24 hours.
How about less than 24 minutes?
Right.
Okay. When Israel attacked Iran preemptively and literally killed 10 or 20 high-ranking IRGC generals, colonels, important people, how long did it take to replace them? Not long. Okay.
Not long at all.
The military set up that if people get killed, okay, too bad, we'll plant flowers, but number two, you're now number one. That was a raid that accomplished absolutely nothing but kidnapping Madero. Same thing.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to deal with this problem, but it needs to be dealt with because you cannot have violence on that scale just being unleashed because these guys feel like it because they're pissed off that you got their boss, right?
Well, here's what I know. You ask a very valid question. I kind of ducked around the answer. I don't know what's going on since then, but it scares me that you introduce that kind of chaos to the equation. We have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of drug participants in the United States, and we've got 400 million guns. It would not take very much to create a revolution in Mexico that would spill over into the United States and potentially Canada. The crime and corruption is a problem, and frankly, if people are stupid enough to be shooting up fentanyl, fuck them.
Interesting take. Okay, very good. So it's interesting as we're getting closer to the midterms because it seems to me like Trump administration and the Republicans are cruising for a beating in November. So how does this play out? Is there any chance for Trump to get back in the good graces of voters, or is this situation going to deteriorate further and then come to a head either at the polls with a bad result for Trump or some sort of, election, obstruction operation where we don't actually have a midterm election?
That's a interesting question because both alternatives are possible. I think Trump's biggest flaw is his inability to see himself as others do. The guy is a gas bag and he just makes shit up. Did you actually watch the State of the Union?
I watched about 30 minutes of it.
Did you catch when he was talking about the American male hockey team and the goalkeeper?
Yes.
What did he say the guy had done in the game?
He said he won the game. He stopped a lot of goals, right?
No, he said he won the game. He stopped 46 goals.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, he didn't stop 46. He stopped 42.
42, yeah.
And he allowed one through. Now, if you're going to go quoting numbers as some kind of expert, I think there should be some kind of requirement that somebody actually give you the correct numbers in advance. I remember something he said, and this goes back probably a year or so. He was talking about Russia and how many people they had lost in World War II. And he said 67 million. And I went, what? I don't think that number is accurate. And of course, we don't know how many Russians were killed, but it was somewhere 22, 25, 28 million. But it was damn sure not 68 million. Now, he has people working for him who go over his speech. Didn't anybody think about, why don't we check and see what the correct number is? And it was interesting to me, and I suspect we're a lot closer to a civil war or revolution than most people want to admit. What did the women's hockey team do?
They won gold medal too.
What did they do at the State of the Union?
They didn't attend.
Yeah, we got better things to do. And I thought, it's really interesting. Donald, people are trying to tell you something. Why don't you listen? And I hate to say it, and you raised a really interesting issue that I would actually be afraid of raising. What's he going to do when it becomes crystal clear that you couldn't get elected dog catcher if you were a Republican in the midterm elections? Now, traditionally, when a president is elected the next midterm, their party loses votes. But I think this time it's going to be catastrophic. Between now and November, I'm absolutely convinced we have some bad economic news coming that's going to be a giant shock to everybody.
Yeah, it's you look at the stock market, and look, the S&P has been gyrating for a couple of months, and obviously the administration wants it to go up. They want to run it hot, but it's stalling out here, right? And then when you think ahead, when you think like what could happen in Iran, what could happen with the economy as the year goes on, and then the midterms and the potential for upset that could cause. It's easy to get bearish here, Bob. It's easy to get bearish on stocks. I do want to talk about precious metals though. So gold continues to trade really well. Silver was above $90 last night. It's down a bit this morning, but still very strong pricing. All this talk about the Comex and how they don't have the metal, and I was getting all these emails about how we're going to have a default again from the Comex. That doesn't look like it's happening. Seems like a lot of that stuff is overstated. But what's your take on gold and silver here, Bob?
Okay. You've raised a very valid point. You raised something people need to think about. What is the value of a contract of silver right now at $90 an ounce?
$450,000 for the 5,000 ounce.
So if you were one of the 26,000 people holding a contract of silver and you really like silver, how many people have got 450,000 cash to write a check? And the answer is not many. I would say commodities broker. There were two guys for the last 25 years, both of whom were frauds, both of whom were kicked out of the commodities business on a permanent basis, who started this whole manipulation, conspiracy, naked short selling, bullshit. It is bullshit. The purpose of the commodities exchange is not to exchange commodities. The purpose is to determine price. And they come up with all this stuff. If silver goes up 10% in a day and Comex raises the margin, everybody says, they're trying to kill silver. No. They're trying to protect the intermediary. The purpose of margin is to protect the intermediate who set up the contract in the first place. Lind Waldock got put out of business in 1998 when the Russian thing blew up with $600 million in contracts that the people defaulted on because the margins were too low. Silver is a commodity. Gold is a commodity. What is it about gold that makes it worth 225 times higher today than 100 years ago? What is it about silver that makes silver worth 30 times more now than what it was 24 years ago? And the answer is nothing. Silver and gold go up because of sentiment, and they go up because of the economy, and they go up because of geopolitical events, and they go up sometimes, they go down sometimes. If you believe the most important reason to buy gold or silver is because they're manipulated, you are going to lose all your money. To believe that manipulation is important means that you also have to believe that supply and demand are meaningless. Now, I've seen all the arguments, March 27th, they're going to default because there's 260 trillion ounces of silver on demand, and there's only 15 ounces total available. But if a contract costs $450,000 in cash, less than 1% of people ever actually pay for a contract, because that's not the purpose of the exchange. So there is a difference between the Shanghai price and the Comex price, and I've never quite understood why. However, it certainly appears that China is pulling the market in the direction that it wants to go. I think that the Chinese market is now important than the Comex market. But the whole manipulation, conspiracy, naked short selling, oh my God, we're totally going to run out of silver. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. Every time I see those articles, I say, these guys really don't know what they're talking about, but people love to read it. They love to fall for the story. And look, maybe one day there will be a default of some sort, but
it can't be a default.
Well, because it can be cash settled, right? But
thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So even what somebody's saying they're going to default means he doesn't understand. If you could overwhelm any commodities market, people would do it all the time. So there is always a provision for cash settlement.
Exactly. Very good, Bob. Let's talk about the junior miners. So we've had some incredible moves to start the year. I know many stocks that I own: San Lorenzo Gold, Kingfisher Metals, even Ramp, Metals has picked itself up, off the mat in recent days. And there's a long list. Andina Copper breaking out above $1 yesterday. It's feeling very bullish, but there's this thing called the PDAC curse that happens sometimes, not every year, but next week will be PDAC in Toronto, the largest mining investment conference of the year. And very often we see a sell-off during PDAC week. What say you about the PDAC curse?
Well, two things. You're familiar with my book. We've talked many times in the past. I am an advocate of buying when things are cheap and selling when they're dear. I was buying silver when it was $4.03 an ounce on Comex. I was buying gold at $35 an ounce in 1968. I was buying gold 20 years ago, 25 years ago, at $262 an ounce. So I don't give a damn what the price of gold and silver goes, because I've done so well in those markets that I'm happy. Whether silver goes up $20 a day or down $20 a day, it's absolutely meaningless to me. But right now, gold's expensive, silver's expensive, platinum's expensive, copper's expensive. And I looked at rhodium yesterday. Rhodium's up to $12,000 an ounce again. They're all expensive. So what can you do if you actually would like to own something that you think is going to go up in the future? And the answer is the mining stocks, and the mining stocks are still absurdly cheap. We're going to see a few, not a lot, we are going to see a few stocks go up 100-fold. We're going to see a lot of stocks go up 10-fold. I was going through some of the stocks I own, and I've got half a dozen stocks that have gone up 500 or 600% in the last year, and there's going to be far more of it. The mining stocks have not kept up with the price, physical price of the metals. One day soon, the market is going to discover junior lottery tickets. Now, you know Tavi Costa, right?
Yeah, of course.
I have enormous respect for him. He's like 50 times smarter than I am, and he's really good. And I said, Tavi, what would be the total market cap of all the juniors with the market cap under $100 million? And Tavi, being Tavi, came back at about 15 million, said it was right at 18 billion. Now, given that the cryptocurrency market was 4 trillion a year ago, 18 billion, it isn't even a rounding error. There are going to be literally generational changes in investments in the junior mining market. Now, the majors go up first, and then the mid-tier go up, and then the junior lottery tickets go up. And we're seeing it. I had 2 or 3 stocks yesterday that were up 15%. Yes, PDAC comes. It's called the PDAC curse. And after PDAC starts, okay, these stocks tend to decline. However, they are still obscenely cheap, and they are going to go higher even if gold and silver continue correcting.
It's very interesting, Bob, that the TSX-Venture Composite, which is not a perfect proxy for the junior mining sector, but it's a pretty good one, and I'll put it on this video. It's been oscillating, let's say gyrating near a resistance level for the last couple of months. And a breakout above this level, let's just call it 1100 for a round number. A breakout above 1100 on the composite would complete a major technical chart bottoming pattern, a decade plus bottom. And then, you know, we would start talking about more upside, 50, 100, 150% more potential upside for the index, for the overall index. And right now, February is 1.5 days from closing the candle, and it looks like a breakout, right? So that's something to keep an eye on. And, you know, it aligns with your with your thinking that, well, if we're only 18 billion total market cap for the sector now, you know, that could easily double, or it could even 5x, right?
How about 10 or 20x? What
Right.
happened to the TSX-V from December of 2015 until August of 2016?
It went up a lot. It doubled.
I think it was more than double. I think it went up 200 some odd percent. Okay, so what you just said is not an aberration. It's something that happens on a regular basis. If you compare the resource stocks ETF, and that's all resources, compared to ETFs in general, it's about 2% of the total market. So people do not understand how cheap commodities are right now relative to everything else. But for the TSX-V to go up 100% or 200% or 300%, easy.
Very good. And now a couple of juniors on your mind. White Gold put out more incredible results from the Yukon. I saw you were talking about DEC, which is Decade Resources on the TSX-V. I saw you talked about that recently. That's in the Kamloops region of BC. What's on your mind in the junior mining sector?
Well, strange enough, I happen, over time, I've met damn near everybody, and I was up there literally 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But they have put together a package of 3 or 4 exceptionally high-grade projects, and they got one they're going to be drilling shortly called Bonaparte. They took, in 1994, they took a 3,700 ton bulk sample, and it averaged 25.4 grams per ton. Decade is one of those, well, it's like rock or it's like tech. Or Kingfisher, it's going to go up a multiple.
Kingfisher is a very exciting one. And that's also in BC. That's in the Golden Triangle. And they will close their financing next week. And it's 25 to 30 million they're going to close, right? And that gives them basically 2 years of capital runway. And then you're about 3 to 4 months from drilling there in the Golden Triangle at the Highway 37 project. And I would definitely invite the viewers to take a look at the presentation, look at some of the news releases, look at hole 11 at the Hank copper gold porphyry target. And that really is lined up for a very exciting summer drill program in the Golden Triangle. And really, we're very lucky in this sector to have so many companies generating consistent news flow and high impact drill programs. And it's fantastic. I've never seen the sector this alive, and so many opportunities for big discoveries to be made here in 2026.
Let me give you one that nobody is aware of right now, but they will be aware of in a month or two. Anaconda Copper was the largest copper company in the world for 100 years, and they were based in Butte, Montana. And I think it was discovered in the 1860s. Miners discovered gold first, and then silver, and then lead, and then zinc. And when they went deep, they found copper. And the United States was in the process of electrifying, so we needed copper. And Anaconda produced it for 50 or 60 years. They were put in bankruptcy in the 1970s because Chile confiscated their biggest copper mine down there. They nationalized it when Allende took over. Meanwhile, Butte has been sitting there doing nothing, but there's an enormous amount of data available, and SilverBow will be going public in a month, and they have assembled all of the Anaconda data, and they have 157 million ounce silver equivalent resource. And the strange thing is, the copper was down deep. And what they're going to do is they're going to take out all the material in between the surface and where the copper was. But it's exciting. It's going to be a U.S. company, a U.S. listed company. So it has the potential of being the most attractive silver, lead, zinc property for American investors. Now, one thing, and I've disagreed with this for years and years and years, it is a giant mistake of the Canadian juniors to be penny stocks. Okay. If you want American investors, you have to be over $3 or $5 a share. And what the Canadian juniors have done is lock out American brokers and American investors from buying the stocks. Once American investors have an opportunity to invest in silver, lead, zinc property with a 150-year history, I think they're going to leap on that, and it'll be going public in about a month.
Very good, very good. And lots of consolidation opportunities across the sector in 2026 as well. Maybe something will happen in the Yukon, Banyan Gold or Sitka Gold or Snowline Gold.
It has to. You've got Sitka, you've got Snowline, you've got Banyan, you've got Rackla. It has to, and there's going to be enormous opportunity there in M&A.
And Bob, I have an idea for our next conversation. So we'll set it up. It's going to be a 3-person conversation, me, you, and Tara Christie. And we can talk about...
No. We can't do that.
Why not?
Because you said a 3-person conversation. And Tara Christie is one of my favorite people. I love Tara Christie. I love talking to her. So I got some good news. Okay. The 2 people conversation will be Tara Christie and me.
Well, I got to be part of it because I got to ask the questions and move it along. But okay. There'll be 3 people involved, but 2 people talking most of the time. So we'll set that up in March. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
I admire Tara so much, and I've known her for 15 years. I got some really funny stories about Tara.
Yeah, I want to hear the ones about the placer mining in Africa.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.